All right, welcome back. Michael Reese here, certified financial planning professional, almost 30 years now in the industry, which makes me feel a little old. Anyway, in this video series, we're talking about the 3 secrets to successful retirement planning. Now, there's nothing we can do that can guarantee a successful retirement, of course, but we can certainly plan strategically to give ourselves the best opportunities. And that's what this video series is all about. In our previous videos, we've talked about secret number 1, which was income planning, having stable, predictable income that grows and lasts your lifetime. Secret number 2 is having an intelligent investment plan where you're strategic about how you're structuring your investment accounts. Now, here we are in secret number 3. And this has to do all about protecting yourself from the IRS with some intelligent tax planning. So let's go ahead. I'm going to share my screen here. Let's pull this up right about there. Okay, there we go. Secret number 3. Let's talk a little bit about tax planning. Now, what do we want when it comes to tax planning? What are our goals? Well, obviously, we want to reduce our tax liability over time. And secondly, the net effect of that is we want to increase the net to us. So here's an example. This is a great example of what I'm talking about. Now, before I dive into a tax discussion, let's do a quick little disclaimer. Remember, every one of you watching this, your taxes are different from your neighbors, your family member, like a brother or sister, the next. I mean, you're unique when it comes to your taxes. It's different for everyone. And as a result, what I'm going to show you here is just conceptual. Don't be going out there saying, oh gosh, I saw this in a video, I need to do this for myself. It's unique for each one of you. Make sure you're talking to some kind of tax specialist, a tax planning specialist specifically, not necessarily a tax preparer, but a tax planning specialist, someone who can help you in that arena make those great choices for yourself. Okay. So I wanted to get that out there. So, and also what I'm going to focus on here, I'm going to focus on IRAs or 401ks, retirement plans, because it's very common that people we talk to, they've been saving all their lives. Maybe you're one of these folks. Maybe you've been saving money all your life in a 401k or a 403b. And so when you get to retirement, a big chunk of your money is in an IRA, a 401k, a 403b, a 457, something like that. Now, there are so many other ways to do tax planning when it comes to your retirement. I'm only going to focus on this one today, though, because this is one of the most common situations we find. So, Steve and the $500,000 IRA. Here's a little story for you. I had this client a number of years ago, and we'll call him Steve, not his real name, of course. He had roughly 500,000 in his IRA. And in his case, this was extra money. Now, isn't that nice to have an IRA of 500 grand that's just kind of extra money? You know, he had a pension, he had Social Security. So for him, this was extra money. Now, by the way, I know for you, if you're like most people, you probably need your IRA for income. And that's a very similar situations to what I'm going to share with you. But I'm just using this example because it happened to me historically. And remember, just because what we're going to talk about made sense for him doesn't mean it's going to make sense for you. All right. Anyway, so Steve, he retired. He was an engineer and he liked spreadsheets. And so he started doing some math and he was trying to calculate. He said, hey, he said, if I earn, 7% a year on my growth accounts, which we assumed was on the low side of things over time, remember, not year by year, but over time, right? He said, if I earn 7%, he was trying to calculate what his required distributions might be in the future. He was 65 years old. His wife was 65, and he was assuming that at least one of them would live to age 90. And he's trying to figure out, like, year by year, he was bored, right? Year by year, how much, what do these required distributions look like? So here's what he started doing here. So just a second, let's go ahead and I'm going to share with you this is kind of a picture of what he calculated. And one of the reasons, once he did this, he brought his spreadsheet to me. He said, Mike, I just want to make sure I'm not making any mistakes here because I'm looking at these numbers. He goes, they add up to a pretty sizable sum, and I want to make sure I'm not messing this up. So he was asking me to check his math. Now, what I've done here on this particular page is I've adjusted his numbers a little bit from back in those days, because back when he ran the calculations, required distributions started when you were 70 and a half. Today, it's age 73. And so I just adjusted his spreadsheet to, these numbers to reflect that. And in a case like that, let's imagine you're 65 years old. You've got 500,000 in your IRA. You're in 7% a year on average, which who knows if that's going to happen. You might earn more, you might earn less. First year, required distributions about $32,000. And then the next year, it's about, you can kind of see right here, it's about 35. And then, well, we got 38 maybe, or almost 40 and 41. And it just grows year by year. And by the time you're 90, it's over $90,000. So what happened was, Steve's looking at these numbers. He's like, Mike, what the heck, man? I'm going to start paying these numbers. But he was particularly focused on in the 80s. Look at these numbers when I'm getting into my 80s. They were getting really big. And then he said, what if I die? Let's say I die when I'm 85. And my wife, let's call her Jane, right? Jane, she's now a single taxpayer and she's got these required distributions, which are huge. And her tax brackets go up because she's a single taxpayer and I'm leaving her like a tax mess. So he is kind of getting worked up about this. And then, and this is where it got, interesting. He said, Mike, look at this. He goes, I started adding these numbers up. And he goes, if I add up all the required distributions for my wife and I between age 70, well, at this point, 73 and 90, it's like $1 million that we have to withdraw and pay tax on whether we want to or not. And a bunch of that's when we're in our 80s. And he goes, and if my math is right, when we both die, our kids get the IRA, there's still $1 million in that thing that's going to be taxable to our children. So between, we've got taxable distributions, our kids have taxable distributions, that's over $2 million that we're all going to have to pay tax on. And if my math is right, if all we owe is a 25% tax rate, which is probably, well, it's probably assuming low, let's be honest, given these numbers, that's over $500,000 of tax that the IRS is going to collect on us over time on an IRA that's currently only worth $500,000. He's like, that's like 100% of what I have right now. And then some's going to go to the IRS if I just keep going down this road. And he said, Mike, is that possibly correct? I said, Steve, it looks like that's exactly correct. And so, of course, what was his question? What are we going to do about it, right? What can we do about this tax problem? And when it comes down to it, remember, we do have options. Now, remember, this is where all of you are different. You might have more money in IRAs. You might have less money in IRAs. Your situation is going to be different from everyone. But here is a list of potential things you could do to help reduce taxes on IRAs over time. Now, by the way, in his case, instead of $540,000 of tax, we were able to get that down to maybe a couple $100,000. We were able to reduce his tax by over $300,000 over time, which was awesome. I don't know what would be available or appropriate for you, or what your opportunities might be, but we find that it's very common. We can save taxes, right? So let's go ahead and let's take a look at some different ways we can do that. Well, certainly Roth conversions is at the top of the list. With a Roth conversion, you simply say, hey, I'm going to pay some tax now, and I'm going to move money from an IRA that's going to create a lot of taxes down the road to a Roth IRA where it is tax-free from that point forevermore. But it does cost a little bit of tax today. Life insurance rollout. This is becoming really popular for people who have over 500,000 in their IRAs. And especially if you have over a million. This is where you take some distributions instead of converting to Roth. You say, I'm going to put it into specially designed insurance contracts where there's both a tax-free death benefit, tax-free cash values, and a tax-free long-term care benefit. So that's becoming popular. QCDs, qualified charitable donations. These happen after you're in your 70s, and it's a way to give to charity on a very tax efficient manner. Donor advised funds. These are things you can do even before age 70, again, involving charities that can help you reduce taxes on your retirement accounts. CRTs, which stand for Charitable Remainder Trust, is another way to reduce taxes in the future. I don't have it on here, but QLACs, qualified longevity annuity contracts. That's another way you could take a portion of your retirement accounts and do some intelligent tax planning. So there's a lot of options in the tax code, depending on your situation. If you're self-employed, there are even more options. So my point is simply this. My point is this. Everyone's different with their taxes. Remember that. You're all different. Don't just sit there and accept the status quo. Make sure you talk to someone who has some knowledge with tax planning to see if they can help you significantly. I have seen people reduce their taxes by over $100,000 over their lifetime, which is money instead of giving to the IRS, it puts it in your pocket. And I'm guessing you can make smarter choices with how that money is spent than the IRS will on your behalf. So let's be smart. Let's plan ahead. Let's be strategic. Let's keep more money in your pocket and send less to the IRS. So congratulations. We have solved income. We have solved investing. Now we've even solved taxes, at least to some degree. Now, we're not quite done. We've got one more video. Because now we need to think about, okay, how do we take all this information and how do we personalize it for you? All right, gang, I think that'll be the end of this video. Let's go ahead and pull my face up here for you. There we go. All right, that's the end of this video. Hope you found it helpful on taxes. Now, our next video, we're going to talk about how do we bring it all together in a manner that's customized and personalized for you. So we'll see you there.